What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tones Over Thinks It, the show where I think too much to make up for the people who don't think at all. You know, when I started this channel, I had set out to try to take a deep dive into the kind of person who would do something silly, ridiculous, deplorable, or otherwise ill-advised, film themselves doing it, post that footage to the internet, and then through complex mental gymnastics, somehow believe that they are the good guys. I've always tried to approach this from a rather different perspective than those of other channels that, criticize them. Try to find logic and reason in what they do. Try to understand it. The problem is, especially with First Amendment auditors, is that you can't approach it with logic and reason. And in trying to do so, it just leads to mounting frustration, anxiety, anger, and, well, to be honest, those things could take a toll over time. And that's probably the reason why I haven't talked about them much. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be exploring the exploits of a single frauditor. I'm not going to tell you the name of his channel. I'm going to try very hard to not go into any details of this individual personally, because I want to try to approach this from a position of criticizing the practice rather than the individual. And we'll see how far logic and reason can withstand it.
Questions, Mr. Fortner?
No, not right now.
Why not?
We can get our head lunch, man.
Okay, well,
Set up an appointment.
I would like to do that with you.
Yeah.
I would like to set up an appointment as soon as possible. This is I'm
Okay, so we're off to a simple start. Setting an appointment is probably better than simply ambushing a random person out in the parking lot, because I'm not quite sure how they can help you from there.
I'm not going to have this discussion, so.
well, I mean, you will eventually
You
because
can do it however you want to do it with your recordings, that's fine, but I'm not having this discussion with you.
this is our business.
We've already had it before. We already provided you with the answer.
No, you didn't. You didn't hear me out.
Yeah, okay.
You didn't hear me
Yeah.
out.
So, yeah, that's the end of it.
Ah yes, that immediate sprint to the First Amendment as if it's the end-all be-all of everything. Well, yes, you do have the right to address grievances with your government, as you do have the right to free speech, the right to practice whatever religion, the right to free press that is not under government regulation, and so on. However, people tend to forget that the First Amendment is subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, which were established as constitutionally permissible in the case of Cox versus New Hampshire. So while indeed the Constitution does guarantee you the right to redress your government, to bring forth any grievances you might have, you alone do not get to decide where, when, and how you do it. If the institution already has means established of where, when, and how, you are required to follow it, otherwise your grievances will not be heard.
Abuse and neglect, you can call
I'm
the
sorry?
hotline, you can make a report.
Attack?
Yeah.
There was no attack, ma'am. I have it all recorded.
And yet you have mysteriously jump cut between meeting this person in the parking lot and your discussion with them currently in the building. But rather than just take my word for it, why don't we watch that whole segment again in real time? Perhaps your ability to teleport both of you into the building out of nowhere made him less willing to speak to you? Thus introducing the first thing about First Amendment auditors that I can't quite understand. The fact that they worship at the altar of transparency, and yet don't want to be transparent themselves. Actually, the attack doesn't have to be physical, and surprisingly, frauditors love to claim they're under attack whenever someone criticizes their videos. Well, that seems presumptuous.
Really, the only way I can force them to leave is to trespass them. If they refuse, then I take them to jail. So
Yeah, well then I guess that's what we're going to do.
But I mean, we didn't break any laws.
It doesn't
We're here to
matter. This is
conduct
a-
official business
Does the
with
state?
It doesn't matter.
tax-paid
We've
money.
got
I mean,
other
it's,
stuff going on here.
it doesn't matter. Okay,
Why
they can
not?
trespass anybody they want from this property.
Okay, sorry, let me fix that for you real quick. You see, all frauditors have this misconception that you can never be trespassed from public property. Ever. As in perpetuity. Except, you can be. And it has been upheld in multiple court cases, including USPS v. Council of Greenberg Civic Association, You know, the one that specifically states the First Amendment does not guarantee access to property simply because it is owned or controlled by the government? Or perhaps Wilson versus State, where it says, and I quote, "Under the Constitution, governmental entities have the same rights as private property owners to control their properties, so long as the entity's policies are not employed as a subterfuge for illegal discrimination." And so far in this video, we have not once heard them say they want you to leave based on your race, your gender, or your sexual orientation. My God, do I really have to spell this out? Alright. Paying taxes does not grant you contractual ownership of public property. Your individual name is not on the deed. If they look up who owns it, it will say the state or the government, not you.
Okay, so even though you pay into taxes doesn't mean you have stock in
This
this
is a
building.
public facility.
So are you saying Thornton's is public? So are you saying Thornton's is public?
So are you saying Thornton's is public?
Have you been drinking? It's a perfectly legitimate question. She's referring to a private company who owns a business that is publicly accessible. They have private property rights. They too can trespass you if they don't want you there.
Somebody owns this building and it's not you, correct?
Yes, actually tax money, right? Isn't this officially?
You're wrong, okay?
Why
They
not?
can trespass anybody they want from this property
That's
for no
fine.
reason.
Okay, now we come to the second thing about frauditors that I can't understand to the point of frustration. You guys talk about how this is something properly serious, you know, that your constitutional rights are at stake, or in this case, you're attacking Child Protective Services because, I don't know, reasons. You guys always do. I don't know what it is. But if it's such a serious issue, why the theatrics? Why the jump cuts? Why the editing? Why the fancy titles? This isn't supposed to be entertaining. My ripping it apart and trumping it with logic, reason, and jokes, yeah, that's entertaining. But if this is something concerning you and your rights, you should be taking it dead seriously. And yet none of you ever do. It just seems like you have to dress it up and make it a joke. Which, in my opinion, diminishes the meaning of what you're doing.
My name is right here. My name is right here.
You stated earlier in the video that you know the officer's name, what department they work for, and their badge number. Clearly no effort was made on the officer's part to conceal that information from you. You have it. You put it in the video. And yet you insist on pulling the ever-popular yet never funny or made sense officer right here gag. I mean, I'm being dead serious. I'm going off script here. Why is it so hard for you to understand that they put their name and their number on their badge so that you can see it and you can identify them, whether they tell you verbally or not? And if you want to play the classic, well, I can't read card, they are not responsible for your literacy. They are not responsible for your ability to observe and comprehend information that they have fulfilled every obligation to make available to you.
Don't even
Yeah.
conversate with him anymore.
Me?
Don't even
Yeah.
conversate with him anymore.
So are you prohibiting me from requesting my report that I have to do in person?
Then I would call the Indianapolis chapter.
We have. We've actually got a lawsuit going against us.
Okay. Then you probably have no other business here. If you've already
No,
taken
we are.
it to a
This
lawyer.
is the business for the lawyer.
And we
But if you've taken it to a lawyer, then he needs to start dealing with stuff, not you guys.
Oh boy. Okay. Telling you that you need a lawyer is not legal advice. So I don't know why you're harping on that. But moving on, she is absolutely correct. If you are pursuing a lawsuit with an institution and you have a lawyer, from that point on, all communication, all interaction goes between them and your attorney representing you. Why? Because that makes sure that everything is done properly. If they're talking to you without your lawyer present, that could cause problems for them and for you. So if you are committed to suing somebody, get yourself a lawyer. That's not legal advice, that's common sense, and let your lawyer do the talking. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen the results of someone not doing that and thus falling completely flat on their face multiple times.
Can't? Okay.
No, you need to leave.
So we're being trespassed from
You are
public.
being trespassed. You need to go.
Okay.
You
And
guys
won't
are
give us-
trespassed, so
So
Okay, I'm going to stop the video there. I'm pretty much done with it. The rest of it is him just going into a temper tantrum, still ignorant of the law and the fact that you can in fact be trespassed from a public building, and the fact that if you are suing someone, that you should really have your lawyer handling it and not you doing it yourself. And just because you have a right to redress your government doesn't mean you could do this any way you like and cause a scene and thus get yourself trespassed, thus starting the cycle all over again. See, this is why I can't cover frauditors anymore. You could tell by the tone of my voice. At the beginning of this, I was content to just point out some of the problems and some of the mistakes and try to offer receipts and debunk these things. But at the end of the day, you can't approach these people with logic and reason. You cannot get them to understand what they're doing is wrong. And for all we know, maybe this person has a legitimate case against CPS. It's not impossible. Maybe some people out there do have legitimate grievances against the police. Again, it's not impossible. But if you're going to go about it like this, there's no way you're going to be taken seriously. Your entire cause, everything you're trying to accomplish, becomes meaningless. It becomes illegitimate. It loses any kind of sympathy that you could possibly garner from anyone who could possibly care. And that's what frustrates me the most, because there are actual serious problems that we as a people face. There are actual serious concerns that we as people need to address. And yet people like this make a mockery of it all. A oddly suspicious and, quite frankly, overall poorly edited mockery. But then again, maybe I'm just overthinking it. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you like what you see here and you want to see even more in the future, please consider subscribing to my channel. Also, feel free to share your thoughts down in the comment section. I always love to read them. Till next time. You know, the other thing about frauditors I forgot to mention that I cannot understand for the life of me, no matter how hard I try, is their love for frivolous copyright strikes. I mean, you're all about freedom of speech and, being able to air your grievances without people illegally censoring you, and yet you go out of your way to abuse the system on YouTube, violating the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, in order to silence people who say things you don't like. How ironic.